Okay, what's up, family? I just figured I'd, put together some information and then share what I got on the topic. As you can see, the topic is the Bible about astronomy and astrology. As you can see, I got that abbreviated. So for those that don't know, um, let me just tell y'all what that means as far as in a sentence, and that would be is the basic instructions before leaving Earth about astronomy and astrology. So, in this topic, um, it's pretty in depth, and it's lengthy. So instead of me just boring y'all, or I wouldn't say boring y'all, but taking up 2 and 2.5 hours of your time, I'm gonna just do this in some segments. So with this initial segment, I wanted to go over some definitions of some words and the origin of words, and then kind of move into one of the initial topics to, I guess, try to come up with an answer. So let me say this right off the rip. I'm not an authority in this topic, but I look into it here and there, and this is one of the questions that I had. So I'm just bouncing it off of y'all to catch y'all opinion and y'all input, and maybe just gain some further understanding on the topic. So, all right, and the definitions that I'm gonna go over real quick. Let me just kind of grab my notes. But the definitions will be astronomy, astrology, allegory, uh, and kingdom, and the origin of the word zoology, and maybe a little background on the word astronomy. But those are some of the words that I'm gonna just run over briefly, and then just dig into the topic. So initially, let me start with astronomy. So the definition of astronomy is the branch of science that deals with celestial objects, space, and the physical universe as a whole. Now, an example, I believe, of astronomy, and for those that's listening, leave a comment, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just going to give a elementary example of it. But I believe it's pretty much just the knowledge of um, stars, planets, moons, their location, uh, the path they travel, um, as the definition says, in the physical universe as a whole, which that would include Earth and the beings on the Earth. So now, astrology, the definition states the study of the movements and the relative positions of celestial bodies, interpreted as having an influence on human affairs and the natural world. So, just an example of astrology, I think, would be like, the zodiac, as far as what time of the year you were born, what type of personality you may have. Some people even say that events that occur can be predicted through astrology. So, but that's the two definitions, and I just wanted to give those because there is a difference between the two. So, all right, now a little background on the word astronomy that I have found. It states, now before I read this, it's a lot of Bible verses that's captioned within this paragraph, but I'm not going to stop and read each one of these Bible verses, but y'all can check them out for yourself. But it says the Hebrews were devout students of the wonders of the starry firmament. In the book of Job, which is the oldest book of the Bible, in all probability, the constellations are distinguished and named. Mention is made of the morning star. Compare the seven stars and Pleiades, Orion or Taurus, the Great Bear, the Crooked Serpent Draco, the Discovery or Gemini, Castor or Castor and Pollux. The stars were called the host of heaven. The oldest division of time were mainly based on the observation of the movements of the heavenly bodies, the ordinances of heaven. Such observations led to the division of the year into months and the mapping out of the appearances of the stars into 12 portions, which received from the Greeks the name of the zodiac. The word Mazzaroth means, as the margin notes, the 12 signs of the zodiac. Astronomical observations were also necessary among the Jews in order to the fixing of the proper time for sacred ceremonies, the new moons, the Passover, etc. Many allusions are found to the display of God's wisdom and power as seen in the starry heavens. So that's a little background on astronomy. One thing that stood out to me that I wanted to point out to y'all is that they stated that the book of Job is the oldest book in the Bible. So, I know Genesis is thought to be the first or the oldest, but I can check into that. Now, the definition of allegory. They have three definitions, I believe, for allegory, but maybe not. But the definition I'm reading states the expression by means of symbolic fictional figures and actions of truths or generations about human existence. B, a symbolic representation. So those are the two definitions of the definition of allegory. So I kind of felt that was important because I believe a lot of this is allegorical. Now, an example of that, I believe, I could be wrong, and like I said, leave a comment if you know something that I don't know, share it. But all right, it's from the Bible verse of Matthew 6:10. I think a lot of y'all are familiar with that, where it says, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done as it is in heaven." Now, what stood out to me, of course, was the first, or I should say the second word of that, kingdom. So, the definition of kingdom, let me read that to y'all. It says, now, no, okay, this is the one that has like three definitions, the word of kingdom, but all right, this is the third definition. So it says one of the three primary divisions into which natural objects are commonly classified. Compare animal kingdom, mineral kingdom, plant kingdom. So that's the definition of kingdom, one of the definitions of kingdom. So y'all, as y'all can tell, it's just a classification after you group some animals together, you call that a kingdom. So what I noticed was, well, I decided to look because if you group a bunch of animals together, you call that normally a zoo. Is where they're grouped at. So I looked up the origin of the word zoology. So now that states late 14th century from Old French zodiac, from Latin zodiacus, zodiac, from Greek zodiakos, zodiac circle, literally circle of little animals, from zodiaon, diminutive of zoon, animal, from pi root gui, to live. So, I just kind of thought like, okay, I found that somewhat interesting, but I just wanted to share those definitions because I think those words they'll come into play, the further we get into this topic. But now, as the title says, is the Bible astronomy and astrology. So, what kind of led me to that question was, you know, um, the Bible characters, the major Bible characters, there haven't been any evidence to show that they existed outside of the Bible. Like you can't find any grave sites and other cultures that have had recorded history. They don't record the names of some of these Bible characters, at least not by the names that we have written or given to us in this King James version and the versions that came after that or whatever. So, in thinking like, well, if it's no evidence of them existing, was this an allegory of, something else? And what was that something else? So my thought was, okay, I heard a little bit about astrotheology, and I said, okay, well, it would make sense that they couldn't find the bones if they weren't real people. And could those individuals, those major Bible characters, be allegories for celestial objects? So that's what kind of led me into this topic. So I'm just gonna share, the information that I had and gathered looking into it a little bit. Well, anyway, I had a question like, well, did they have telescopes? Were they able to even view some of these celestial objects and be able to, plot out their path, and even some people worshiping them? And so, I said, all right, well, looking up that question as far as that they have telescopes, um, I kind of knew a little bit about the telescope and that you needed a convex and a concave lens to make a telescope, but I wasn't really for sure as far as if the ancients had those things. So I decided to look it up. But while looking it up, um, I discovered that Saturn, for example, you don't need a telescope in order to see Saturn. So in saying that, all right, they really didn't need a telescope in order to view some of these things, to be astronomers or astrologers, to encode those things within the Bible. They really didn't need telescopes, but I kind of found that after. I mean, I found that out after I, was looking up information about ancient concave and convex lenses. And then, they had to also, just throwing this in there, they had to know or not only possess these lenses, but have the knowledge of the effects that these two lenses would have when used together. So, you know, in trying to find out that answer, it led me, to the young man that y'all is seeing now. And, just watching how this convex lens is working in coordination with the sun, it's just, now I know you like, why would you be showing us this? But of course, I'm showing the effects and the power of a convex lens, but how this relates to if the ancients had convex lenses and knew the effects of using them, in conjunction with concave lenses. I came across or knew of this this knife, and this knife um, is called the B.I.B.L.E Eric knife. I believe, to be somewhere near like to no, better yeah, I should say, excuse me, it's about 5,000 years old. So this is, out of Egypt, Abydos. Now, the reason that the video of the young man doing the solar engraving, reminded me of this knife is because of the handle on this knife. Now, it's been theorized that this handle, it's an ivory handle, I believe. Some people say that they thought that it was a tooth of a rhinoceros, but either way, the handle has a inscription in it or a carving, and it's considered to be one of the oldest known examples of a bas relief. Now, the depth of the carving um, doesn't exceed 3/4 of an inch, maybe 2 millimeters. So just keep that in mind. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's been thought and stated by some that this engraving was done through the process that we just viewed. Now, that's somewhat speculative. I really don't know, but I do know the craftsmanship and the detail on this handle is, you know, it's extraordinary. But and then for it to be less than an inch deep, to get that detail is like I said, it's extraordinary. But also, I think it would be a better example of showing concave and convex lenses and how the ancients not only possessed them but uh, knew how they worked. Uh, there's an article, and from that article that I'm gonna share with you, it reads about these concave and convex lenses that were found in the statues of, or the different statues found throughout ancient Egypt. Okay, it reads J. Enoch from the School of Optometry at UC Berkeley and Vasudevan Lakshminarayan. I messed his name up, I know it. From the School of Optometry at the University of Missouri observed that the front area of each eye was composed of a very hard quartz, fashioned into a flat cornea of fine optical quality. The iris painted to resemble the living human iris. In the center at the rear of the cornea lens, a small concave curve was drilled or ground to match the pupil aperture of the human eye. It formed a concave lens of high negative refractive power. The front surface of the cornea had considerable positive refractive power, but were much weaker than the rear element. A resin was used to attach the lens element to the white part of the eye. The rear of the cornea lens had two optical zones. One was peripheral and flat, and the other was distinct negative curve. Both were centered on each other. These were centered on the front area of the cornea's surface, which had a convex or positive curve, possible in order to form a multifocal element. According to their analysis, both the front and rear surfaces of the lenses contribute to the perceived movement of the pupil as the observer rotates around the statue. The scientists tried to recreate the eyes using present day tools and equipment and could only reproduce part of the perceived movement of the eyes. So I think as far as the ancients possessing convex and concave lenses, that goes without saying, and them knowing the effects of it, um, of how to use that, I should say, the effects of using the two lenses as well as just using one of them. I will believe that's very very plausible. Now, to use those lenses to make a telescope. Now, some would say that they didn't, but I would suggest for someone to be able to make pyramids and align them with constellations and make structures that are put together by 3 and 4 ton blocks to the millimeter, I would think making a telescope would be pretty much, you know, elementary. But again, it's already been established that you really don't need a telescope to view some of these planets. And Galileo, in 1612, I believe it was, The telescope that he had a magnification of only about 30. So as you see, to make a telescope with the magnification of about 40, you can make that as simple as what you're looking at. So, and that's not even to go into how the Dogon had knowledge of Sirius B. I mean, some people are, they say that's the Dogon mystery, but they could have they could have just caught it on a dark, starry night, stared, saw it, and when the European asked, they just told them like, people or beings from there gave us the knowledge of there. So I mean, I don't know, but anyway, on to the topic. Um, as far as I guess you would say, insertion of astronomy or astrology in the Bible, I kind of, had the question, well, did the author of Job, if it was Job, uh, did he have knowledge of Chin and I guess that's in the book of Amos, but did they have knowledge of these stars at the time that is supposedly going on in the Bible, or was the mention of these stars and these celestial bodies, were they uh, inserted by the Greeks and Romans at a time where, you know, but again, telescopes, and then really Galileo, when he viewed Saturn, he thought that that was a star, and also with Neptune. And so, but I think you only reason you would even need, well, not need, but in order to see the rings on Saturn, you would need a telescope, but to actually view Saturn, you wouldn't. But I know it seemed like I'm pulling from a couple different angles, but I think it's kind of necessary on this topic to gain an understanding of some of the information we're trying to digest, or at least I'm trying to digest and process, I should say. But um, anyway, I don't want to make this too long. Like I said, um, just give y'all kind of the introduction of the topic that I'll be putting videos out, and as well as I'm gonna have a couple of people that'll be here to build on the topic and see if that statement or that question about is the basic instructions before leaving Earth about astrology and astronomy, see if that's find out if that's accurate or not. But I'm gonna leave this one here, but what I will say is coming up on the next one, I want to put the information out there um, about Solomon's Sea of Bronze. And so, this is from First Kings 7, and you can read the whole chapter, but it's kind of specified in the 23rd verse through the 26th verse. So I'm gonna just go into that a little bit and see if that points in the direction of astronomy. And I got a couple of other ones lined up, but that'll be the next segment about Solomon's Sea of Bronze. And I'm just trying to get down to the bottom of it, family. Just if you see some, and I know on some of these things, I mentioned some names and some places, and I pretty much just scratched the surface on some of the things. So, and that's because I'm trying to just stay on the point of, is astrology and astronomy mentioned in the Bible? And I think it is, but so hopefully, if something that I had mentioned, y'all know more about, leave a comment. I, like I said, I'm not an authority on this subject. I'm just bouncing the thought and trying to find out if it's fact or not. But just approaching it with a little bit of critical thinking and some logic. So anyway, like I said, the next one will be Solomon's Sea of Bronze, and I think that will start pointing towards the direction that a lot of these individuals, as well as a lot of instances, and I guess you would even call them Bible relics or symbols that are representative of things that are in the cosmos. So, um, if this is a topic, that you're interested in, something about, feel free to leave a comment and we can build on it. So, all right, that's about all I'm putting out here right now. I think I'm approaching about 30 so minutes. So, like I said, I don't want to take a whole bunch of time, try to keep this right around this time or less. But all right, y'all, peace.